Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Simon Marks. For weeks now, we've been bringing you developments on what's been unfolding in Afghanistan. We've tracked the withdrawal of US troops, we've tracked the withdrawal of NATO troops, and we've told you about the handing over of the historic Bagram base. But amidst those weekly updates, even within the last few days, the Taliban has only emerged more violent, brazen and emboldened. Now the fighting on the ground is escalating, with Afghan forces launching counter-offensives. We'll get you a full update on that, but first, let's take a look at all the day's top headlines. Breaking news from Japan. The country's Olympics minister says the organisers have agreed to hold the Games with no spectators in Tokyo amid a surge in the pandemic and the Delta variant. Britons fully vaccinated in Britain will no longer have to quarantine from medium risk amber list countries when they return home as of July the 19th. Afghan government forces claim to have taken back control of a western provincial capital stormed by the Taliban a day earlier, as fighting continues in the Baghdis province. There's been a major spike in attacks on US military bases in Iraq, a day after 14 rockets were fired at an Iraqi airbase hosting American troops in Anbar. 3 rockets landed near the US embassy compound in Baghdad today. US micro-blogging giant Twitter finally appoints an interim compliance officer for India after facing flack for not complying with the new IT rules of the country. And a news conference by Lithuania's president and the Spanish Prime Minister at a NATO airbase in Lithuania was abruptly cut off as Spanish fighter jets deployed there were scrambled for an alert. We begin today in Afghanistan, where the country's armed forces have launched airstrikes on Taliban hideouts. The Afghan Defense Ministry has shared a video of what it says were strikes on Taliban targets. It says that 12 terrorists were killed in the raids across various locations. The Defense Ministry added that 69 Taliban terrorists were killed in Baghdis province in a separate attack. At least 107 Taliban terrorists have been killed across 12 provinces in the last 24 hours. The ministry said that the army has also seized weapons from the Taliban. Taliban and Afghan forces have been issuing counterclaims as fighting on the ground escalates. Afghan troops say they've retaken the capital of Baghdis province from the terror group. They say that the Taliban has been driven out of the provincial capital, Kala-i-Noor. The Baghdis police chief says that the Taliban suffered heavy casualties.
داخل شهر قرار داریم. دشمنای قسم خورده مردم افغانستان یعنی طالبای کثیف امروز میخواستم که شهر قلعه ورگویا یا اینا تصرف باشم یا مردم با عزت بادقصر اینا به خاک خون بکشم که اونا کور خواندم که با جواب دادن شکن نیروهای قهرمان امنیتی روبرو شدم. بالای 80 نفر دشمن کشته و زخمی داره. فعلا دشمن در حال فرار.
Earlier, videos released by the Taliban showed the terror group invading the city. This was the first provincial capital claimed by the group. Baghdis province lies on the border with Turkmenistan. Earlier, Afghan authorities confirmed that most of the districts had been captured by the Taliban, but now the Afghan forces are saying that the situation in the province is not a cause for concern.
او د بادغیس هم داسې کوم د تشویش وړ وضعیت نه ده د ښار کمربند کاملا مدافع جوړه ده په کومو ولسوالیو کې چې اړتیا وه د اړتیا په بنسټ باندې او د تکتیکي قمندان د قرار په بنسټ باندې هغو خپل کوم تدابیر چې لازم وو هغه یې نیولي دي.
Another battle zone is shaping up in the Takhar province. The provincial government says that at least 15 Taliban terrorists were killed as security forces retaliated for an attack on the capital Talogan. Heavy fighting is also taking place in Kunduz province. Afghan special forces are trying to drive Taliban fighters out of Kunduz city. Most of the districts of that province have fallen to the Taliban. The fighting is also hitting Afghanistan's economy. There has been a decline in revenues because the Taliban has captured key customs posts. Human rights and women's rights activists are urging the Biden administration to provide visas specifically for vulnerable women and women advocates who are at risk after foreign troops complete their withdrawal from Afghanistan. The United States could now possibly consider offering an expedited visa path for vulnerable Afghans. Here's a report.
The Biden administration is considering an expedited visa path for vulnerable Afghan women who may become targets of the Taliban. That's according to US officials. Women politicians, journalists and activists continue to face intimidation, discrimination and violence. Human rights groups are calling for up to 2,000 visas specifically for vulnerable women and women's advocates. After the US military pullout of Afghanistan this month, advocacy groups have urged the White House to develop a plan to evacuate thousands, which include those who have worked with foreign forces and translators. One of the officials also said men and minorities working in high-risk professions are also being considered. The White House declined to comment, but US President Joe Biden said he will speak on Afghanistan on Thursday. Women police officers, media workers, judges and medical workers have been assassinated in Afghanistan as foreign military have left the country. Women who appear on TV and radio faced particular threats, Human Rights Watch wrote in April. Under the Taliban, women were barred from education or work, required to fully cover their bodies and could not leave home without a male relative.
What President Biden has to say about Afghanistan in the White House a little bit later. Now, after almost 2 weeks of round-the-clock search and rescue operations, officials in Florida have told the families of those still missing in the debris of a partially collapsed apartment building that there is no hope left of anyone being found alive in the rubble. Rescue crews pulled out 18 more bodies from the pile of rubble on Wednesday. That raised the tally of those dead to 54. The mayor of Miami-Dade, Daniela Carver, informed families of the missing that the search operation has now become a recovery mission and that there is zero chance of finding any survivors.
At this point, we have truly exhausted every option available to us in the search and rescue mission. So today is about beginning the transition to recovery so that we can help to bring closure to the families who've been suffering and waiting for news. Nothing we can do can bring back those we've lost, but we can and we will do everything in our power possible to identify all of the victims and to offer closure to the families in this time of unimaginable grief.
Family members of the victims and rescue teams gathered at the site to observe a moment of silence. Rescue workers hung a banner in memory of the dead near a makeshift memorial. Crews will now transition the search into a recovery operation.
Now to prepare a room for you.
The assassination on Wednesday of Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse, killed at his private residence, has sent shockwaves across the world. Within hours of the incident, the Haitian police and army tracked and gunned down 4 alleged mercenaries, while 2 more were apprehended after a fierce gunfight. Haitian forces have not yet disclosed the motive behind the president's assassination. Here's what has unfolded in the Caribbean nation over the last 24 hours.
Around 1 a.m. local time on July 7th, at least 6 gunmen stormed the residence of Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse, assassinating the president and leaving the First Lady seriously injured. According to a local Haiti daily, the president's body had 12 bullet holes in it, to the forehead, chest, hips and abdomen. The killers had used large caliber rifles and small 9mm weapons. Shell castings could be seen on the street outside. A nearby car was peppered with bullet holes.
A legal report is made on the president's remains. The body has already been transported to the morgue in the capital.
The president's staff who had been tied up by the assassins say that the killers shouted DEA operation as they stormed in. The late president's daughter, Jo Marley, was also in the home during the attack but hid in a bedroom. The injured First Lady has been flown to the United States for treatment.
Mercenaries got to the president's residence house. They pretend that they are DEA, Drug Enforcement Agency, but they are not. They actually killed the president, but most of them were speaking Spanish, some were speaking English. They killed the president and hurt his wife.
Haiti's interim president, Claude Joseph, has vowed that the president's death will not go unpunished. Declaring a state of siege in the country, Joseph made himself in charge of Haiti and granted himself additional executive powers.
This barbaric act is not going unpunished.
Joseph has been in the post only for 3 months. He was due to step down within days after President Moïse had named his replacement on July 5th, just 2 days before the assassination. Within hours of the assassination, the mercenaries were traced at a house where they had taken refuge. After a fierce gun battle, 4 of them were gunned down and 2 were captured by the police and the army.
4 mercenaries were killed, 2 were intercepted under our control. 3 policemen who had been taken hostage have been recovered.
Police did not identify the mercenaries or say what their motives were for the gun attack. US President Joe Biden called the incident very worrisome.
What's your reaction, Mr. President, to the Haitian president being assassinated?
We need a lot more information, but it's very worrisome about the state of Haiti.
Condemning the assassination, United States has called for free and fair elections in Haiti this year as planned.
It is still the view of the United States that elections this year should proceed. We know that free and fair elections are the democratic path towards ending Haiti's irregular and prolonged rule by decree.
The United Nations Security Council is scheduled to hold an emergency meet on Haiti today. President Jovenel Moïse was sworn in February 2017. The country had since been mired in political crisis. Elections were delayed in the nation due to various disputes, including Moïse's time in office. The assassination comes in the wake of elections in the Caribbean nation and has left impoverished and crisis-hit Haiti into even deeper political chaos and uncertainty. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, scorching summer heat and drought have worsened conditions for farmers and livestock herders in Iraq, a country already scarred by war and violence. With its farmlands drying up and livestock dying, Iraq is struggling with a host of environmental challenges. Here's a report.
Barren lands, dried up rivers, and the blistering summer heat. All these have added to the woes of the people in Iraq. Farmers and livestock herders are struggling to make ends meet. Acute water scarcity is killing their fields and their animals. Over the past 4 decades, Iraq has been scarred by wars. The country is also most vulnerable to climate change, and the environmental challenges that it is facing are hard to deal with.
We are affected and tired due to the drought. The animals began to get poisoned and die because of the lack of water.
The marshlands where water buffaloes and their owners once found respite from the heat have been hit hard by the drought. In the Shatt al-Arab region, where 2 big streams merge, the reduced flow has now caused saltwater intrusion from the Gulf. The saline water has destroyed thousands of hectares of farmland.
Due to the lack of agricultural resources and rain in the country, I will stop farming and work in construction or something else, because there is no point in farming.
Farmers say this year it has been even worse.
The boats used to be able to pass through here, but as you can see, it is no longer possible. So we started transporting products and water on foot. It is very tiring. If the water supply remains the same, then the boats will not even reach here.
Agricultural lands in Iraq are shrinking as farmers are selling off unprofitable plots.
The price of land has now reached between 40 and 120 million dinars, and this figure is tempting for a farmer who does not have the resources to cultivate his land.
Years of war have destroyed the irrigation systems and water treatment plants in Iraq. And according to the United Nations, only 3.5% of Iraq's farmlands are watered with irrigation systems. Rivers have either dried up or are polluted with viruses, bacteria and oil spills. In Basra, freshwater canals are clogged with garbage. Iraq's agricultural sector accounts for 5% of the economy and 20% of employment. But it provides for only half of the food that the country needs. The water shortage and sweltering summers have dealt a major blow to Iraq's agriculture sector. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
As we told you yesterday, climate change is not a threat of the future. It's already here, and it's wreaking havoc. Extreme weather conditions are prompting mass evacuations, and worse, they're killing people. A new study shows that at least 5 million people die due to climate change each year. Since the year 2000, experts have found an annual increase in annual deaths. Almost 10% of the total deaths are linked to changes in temperatures. The study shows that most deaths have been caused due to severe cold, but experts warn that that trend is likely to reverse. The reversal can already be seen in Canada. More than 700 people have died this summer season due to record-breaking temperatures. And of course, the last 2 decades were the hottest since the pre-industrial era. Scientists warn that a warming of more than 2 degrees Celsius would be catastrophic for life on Earth. Europe had the highest death rates per 100,000 people due to heat exposure. Sub-Saharan Africa registered the highest death rates per 100,000 people due to exposure to the cold. 2.6 million people die due to climate change in Asia, out of which 1 million are in China alone and 74,000 people in India. Africa accounts for 1.2 million deaths every year. More than 800,000 Europeans die of excess heat and cold in the continent, out of which the United Kingdom accounts for 52,000 deaths. The Americas, close to 400,000. and Australia contributes about 165,000 deaths. And here's another statistic to think about. The global death toll due to the pandemic has now crossed the grim milestone of 4 million. That's according to data from Johns Hopkins University here in the US. Governments are racing against time to emerge from the pandemic. Vaccination drives are on in full steam. Leaders are finding ways to cooperate to reduce the pandemic's fallout. And yet there is not enough action being taken against a silent pandemic, climate change, which is killing 5 million people each year. From the historic heat wave tearing through the Pacific Northwest to temperatures too hot for humanity in Asia, the new study calls for immediate action by governments, companies, and also the general public, because the consequences of climate change are no longer a far-off threat. They're right here, right now. Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson, the three billionaire entrepreneurs, are competing in the race to space. But also they're competing to usher in a new era of private commercial space travel. Our next report brings you a comparison of their rival ventures in the race to open up travel in space.
Space tourism could soon go mainstream as the technology improves and costs fall, fueling what UBS estimates to be a $3 billion annual tourism market by 2030. The new era of private commercial space travel will be the preserve of millionaires, and notably 3 billionaire entrepreneurs, Sir Richard Branson, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Here's how their efforts compare in the race to be first and stay the course. Bezos, Branson and Musk have been investing billions of dollars in their space startups, and it'll also cost a pretty penny to be part of it. Branson's Virgin Galactic is reported to have more than 600 ticket reservations already, priced at $250,000. It expects to begin a full commercial service in 2022 and eventually hopes to slash the ticket price to around $40,000. Bezos's Blue Origin is planning to charge passengers between $200,000 and $300,000 for the ride, company insiders told Reuters in 2018. Not cheap, but a lot cheaper than the cost of the auction spare seat on the first Blue Origin flight. That went for $28 million. Musk's SpaceX has already taken a crew to the International Space Station and is due to send an all-civilian crew into orbit in September. Japanese billionaire Yusaku Maezawa is due to fly around the moon in SpaceX's forthcoming Starship rocket in 2023. Virgin Galactic's reusable Spaceship 2 system will see its VSS Unity spaceplane lifted to altitude by a large carrier aircraft called VMS Eve before separating. Blue Origin's new Shepard rocket and capsule combo shoots into suborbital space before separating. The rocket section returns to the launch pad with the pressurized capsule falling back to Earth under parachutes. It features 6 observation windows, the largest ever used in space. The SpaceX Dragon capsule sits atop a reusable Falcon rocket to reach space, but it comes with more modest porthole windows to watch the world go by. Virgin Galactic's spaceplane can hold 6 passengers, 2 crew and 4 mission specialists. Blue Origin's autonomous craft can take 6 passengers and flies autonomously. Future known clients include singer Justin Bieber. The SpaceX Dragon capsule is capable of carrying up to 7 people, but the flights planned so far have a crew of just 4. Virgin Galactic boasts a flight time of around 90 minutes from takeoff to landing, including several minutes of weightlessness. Blue Origin's capsule suborbital flight is also 10 minutes after separation. Again, those on board experience a few minutes of weightlessness and see the curvature of the planet before returning to Earth. The SpaceX missions are expected to last 3 to 4 days from launch to splashdown. Typical of Branson's ventures, Virgin Galactic is publicly funded. Its shares peaked at almost $60 following FAA approval in June 2021. Blue Origin is privately owned, with Amazon.com Inc. founder Jeff Bezos previously indicating he would sell around $1 billion in Amazon stock annually to fund the venture. SpaceX is also privately owned and has raised billions in successive funding rounds. Key investors include Alphabet and Fidelity. Musk says fees charged for SpaceX's charter flights will go towards eventual missions to the Moon and Mars.
And finally from us today, Mexicans have got a new opportunity to step into the world of Frida Kahlo, one of my favourite artists. An immersive art experience is giving never-before-seen insight into the life of the iconic Mexican painter. The walk-through digital art installation, organised for her 114th birthday, celebrates Frida Kahlo's life. We are going to leave you with these visuals. Thanks for watching WION Live broadcast from Washington. World is One.
Many other. This is right, Arab.